The Air Canada Flight 759 remains significant in aviation history. It is recorded as one of the world's closest calls in aviation history. The Air Canada Flight 759 had 138 passengers on board its flight on the fateful day. We go back in time to explore the events that took place on the fateful day of the flight. This story is a tale of catastrophe and great fear, that it would take all the resilience and courage of the pilots to guide the flight to safety after tremendous scare. You're welcome to yet another exciting video content. Today's episode delves into an unprecedented mark in history. As we embark on a journey to uncover the story of Air Canada Flight 795, let us recall that safety in the skies is paramount, and sometimes it is only a matter of meters that. Before commencing, kindly allocate a moment to click the like and subscribe button on the video. When you subscribe to the channel, we will notify you whenever we post intriguing video content like this one. To our returning subscribers, we would like to say, welcome back. Now, straight to the video. On July 17, 2017, Air Canada Flight 759 had a late departure from Toronto Pearson International Airport and was set to arrive in San Francisco. The 24-year-old Airbus A320 had over 130 passengers and 5 crew members. They had received a go-ahead from air traffic control to land on runway 28R. The Airbus A320 on the other hand, headed for the opposite taxiway, not the runway. The opposite taxiway had 4 highly filled and loaded airliner flights waiting for approval to initiate takeoff. The National Transportation Safety Board concluded that the Air Canada flight crew's mistake on the runway with the concurrent taxiway was the most likely cause of the incident. Pilot weariness and the team's failure to use the Instrument Landing System, ILS, were also significant factors. The runway misunderstanding that nearly occurred undoubtedly came roughly to the deadliest aviation tragedy in history, putting 5 aircraft and maybe more than 1,000 passengers in immediate danger of an event worse than that of the Tenerife airport tragedy. At precisely 10 p.m. local time, the airport's nocturnal symphony unfolded. Runway 28, usually bustling with activity, lay dormant. Its lights, once vibrant beacons guiding aircraft to safe landings, were extinguished. A curious void enveloped the tarmac, an absence that would soon echo through the annals of aviation history. Amidst this darkness, a solitary signal persisted. At the eastern threshold of runway 28, a flashing X blazed defiantly. 20.5 feet wide, or precisely 6.2 meters, it stood as a cryptic warning, a beacon for those who dared to venture too close. The first officer, eyes sharp and senses heightened, kept vigil while the plane captain steered their metal behemoth. This particular Airbus, christened in December 1992, bore the weight of countless journeys. Its wings had sliced through skies, its fuselage cradling passengers across continents. Yet on this fateful night, it faced a conundrum, a misstep that would reverberate far beyond its sleek aluminum frame. Despite distinct lighting, coloring, and magnitudes differentiating the runway from taxiway, confusion reigned. Runway 28R and its mirror image, 28L, blurred into one, an optical illusion that ensnared seasoned aviators. The pilots, their minds calibrated to precision, faltered. The queue formed unwittingly on the adjoining taxiway C, a path meant for ground movement, not landings. As the Airbus descended, its wheels yearning for solid ground, destiny intervened. Runway 28R, mistaken for its opposite twin, beckoned. The air hummed with anticipation. The United Airlines, UA001 pilot, queued for takeoff, sensed the anomaly. Radio waves crackled, urgency palpable, but time slipped away. The Airbus, oblivious to the go-around order, ascended toward Taxiway C. And so, in the interplay of light and shadow, fate wove its intricate tapestry. The runway, the taxiway, and the pilots, all unwitting players in a drama scripted by misperception. The flashing X watched silently, its warning unheeded. The Airbus, its engines roaring, soared above the threshold, leaving behind a trail of questions and echoes. In the aftermath, investigations would dissect every detail: the runway's silence, the pilot's judgment, and the haunting allure of Taxiway C. But for now, the night held its secrets, and the Airbus A320-200 etched its name into aviation lore. As stated by the pilots, the first finding of the post-event inquiry agrees with the pilots that the runway 28R and Taxiway C were lighted in different colors according to their default configurations. The broadcast information from the Automatic Terminal Information Service was up to date and said that runway 28L was closed and dark. The early finding of the Transportation Board investigation stated that the Airbus A320-200 pilot leaned and took a visual stand, as is customary in these circumstances. They were not obliged to use the instrument landing system because the weather was unambiguous. A bustling thoroughfare for aircraft, Taxiway C was a hive of activity at the airport that fateful night. 4 aircraft were stationed there, their engines humming in anticipation. Among them, 3 belonged to United Airlines, while the 4th proudly bore the insignia of Philippine Airlines. Each craft had its own story, a journey waiting to unfold. Their passengers, oblivious to the intricate ballet of metal and wings, sat in their seats, perhaps sipping coffee or glancing out the window. The pilots, however, were keenly attuned to the air traffic control frequencies, their eyes scanning the runway ahead. The Airbus A320-200 pilot, his voice steady over the radio, sought confirmation from the tower. Had they been granted clearance to land on runway 28R? The cockpit's instrumentation glowed softly, and outside the night enveloped the tarmac. The reason for this inquiry? The pilot's sharp eyes had caught a glimpse of distant airplane lights, faint beacons piercing the darkness, approximately 0.7 miles away. At precisely 11:55 p.m. local time, the air traffic controller responded. "You are cleared to land," came the reassuring voice. The runway lay empty, no other aircraft on 28R. The Airbus A320-200, now a mere 0.3 miles, 500 meters from the threshold, descended gracefully. The pilots, cocooned in their cockpit, trusted the controller's judgment implicitly. Yet, as they glided closer, something felt amiss. The expected lineup of airliners on Taxiway C was conspicuously absent. The runway lights stretched out before them, but the usual companions, those fellow travelers awaiting their turn for takeoff, were nowhere to be seen. An unspoken tension hung in the air. It was then that the Philippine Airlines 115, PR-115 crew took action. Their landing lights blazed to life, slicing through the night. A silent message to the Airbus A320-200. "We're here, and we're on the same path." The darkness yielded to clarity, the 2 aircraft converging toward a shared destiny. Meanwhile, the United Airlines UA001 pilot, first in the queue for takeoff, broke into the radio transmission. Their curiosity piqued, they needed answers. Where was the Airbus A320-200 headed? Both planes now occupied the same Taxiway C, their trajectories intersecting like celestial bodies in a cosmic dance. The air traffic controller's voice crackled urgently. "Abort your landing," they instructed the Airbus A320-200. Panic surged, the realization that they were lined up in Charlie, Taxiway C, not on the intended runway. But fate had already set its course. The engines roared, and the Airbus began its ascent, oblivious to the go-around order that arrived a heartbeat too late. And so, in the quiet hours of that night, decisions were made, signals exchanged, and lives unknowingly balanced on the edge of a runway. The pilots, mere mortals navigating the skies, would forever carry the echoes of Taxiway C, the place where paths converged and destinies diverged. United Airlines, UA001, reported to the air traffic controller that Air Canada soared above them. The traffic controller responded with an acknowledgement of seeing what happened, thereby giving an order to go around. They also said AC-759 hovered 400 meters above Taxiway C during their initial arrival. They dropped to a height as low as 81 feet, 25 meters, and got as nearly 25 feet, 8.8 meters, directly towards the 4 aircraft waiting on Taxiway C. The flight data records that the aircraft was 85 feet, 26 meters, above the Earth's surface when the pilots moved the throttle levers. The airplane dropped to 59 feet, 18 meters, about 2.5 seconds after the pilot pulled the throttle lever. After the incident was reconstructed, a non-involved pilot observed that if the crew had delayed their arrival by 5 seconds, the aircraft would have clashed with the third aircraft, UAL A320, on the taxiway. Additionally, the distance between the rear end of the Philippine Airlines A340 and the bottom of the Air Canada aircraft was a mere 10 to 20 feet, 3 to 6 meters. SFO was the initial airfield in the U.S. to install an airport surface surveillance capability, ASSC system. The system was designed to warn the tower in the event of a clash between runway and taxiway operations. Simply because AC-759 was far enough off track from 28R, it vanished from the local controller's ASSC display for 12 seconds, from just before the pilot of AC-759 asked for approval that 28R was clear until the pilot of UA001 spotted that AC-759 was set up for taxiway. After the subsequent approach, AC-759 finished its go-around and touched down without problems. 2 controllers typically monitor tower and ground frequencies. However, it is controlled by a single traffic controller. The occurrence was not deemed relevant under federal standards in effect at the time. However, Jim Hall, the former chairman of the National Transportation Safety Board, termed it the biggest near miss we've encountered in this decade. He also encouraged the NTSB to reconsider the reporting criteria. The Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, and the United States National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, received information about the event on the 9th of July. Through the information gathered, they jointly led the investigation. The Transportation Safety Board of Canada, TSB, served as a mediator of information sent between Air Canada and the NTSB. On July 11, 2017, the TSB made available preliminary data related to occurrence number 17F0159. The incident was given the identification number DCA-17IA-148 by the NTSB. According to a retired pilot, SFO necessitates accurate flying procedures because Taxiway C is located less than 500 feet, 150 meters, from 28R, and the 2 runways, 28R and 28L, are separated laterally by 750 feet, 230 meters. However, other pilots made the observation that certain airlines mandate the use of the Instrument Landing System, ILS, in all circumstances, irrespective of altitude or terrain. This requirement would have allowed the pilots to see that they were not aligned with runway 28R. A week after the event, Air Canada received a letter from Dave Jones, the then Commissioner of Insurance for California and seat on AC-759, asking for their assistance in the inquiry. On August 2, 2017, preliminary NTSB released inquiry findings derived from flight data recorder telemetry show that AC-759 achieved a minimal elevation of 59 feet, 18 meters, above the Earth's surface. It's also similar to the tail altitude of a Boeing 787-9, which is 55 feet 10 in, 17.02 meters, 2 of which were on Taxiway C-FKCK completed 3 aircraft journey on July 8 before the NTSB was notified of the near miss on July 9. This clearly indicated that the recorded conversations in the cockpit had been wiped before the probe was started. The NTSB stated during a board meeting on September 25, 2018, that it was likely that the pilots mistook Taxiway C for runway 28R because they had failed to notice that runway 28L had been closed in the NOTAM report. Pilot weariness and the flight crew's failure to utilize the ILS in the flight management systems, FMS visual approach were influencing variables. The crew's bodily clock was set to Toronto 03:00 o'clock Eastern Time. The captain, who could find himself ineligible for flights following U.S. pilot fatigue regulations, had not slept for 19 hours, and the first mate had not rested significantly for 12 hours. Later in 2018, Transport Canada intended to align the pilot phase rest regulations with global norms. In December 2018, new rules were unveiled that were more in line with worldwide norms. However, Air Canada Pilots Association denounced these rules, fixing them as inadequate. 6 recommendations were sent to the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, identifying methods that call for an uncommon amount of mechanical frequency input, conspicuously marking the approach on aeronautical charts, evaluating NOTAMs to sort through and display pertinent information, mandating that planes landing in B or C air zone notify pilots when they are not in line with a runway. Airports should be modified to indicate blocked runways and warn of collision hazards, since the construction lights on 28L resembled entrance lighting. Air Canada is training its employees to lessen anticipation bias, streamlining its SFO approach visuals, providing SFO-specific lessons on airliners' simulation devices, and retrofitting fresh planes. Such planes as the Airbus A320 and Boeing 737 MAX, with dual forward-facing displays to improve mental agility in low-visibility, highly hazardous approaches. In September 2018, the NTSB released its last findings, which included 5 suggestions. The aircraft had completed another flight when the pilots took their time reporting the incident, and the voice recording from the cockpit was overwritten. The NTSB has declared its desire for expedited incident documentation, and is considering suggesting that the previous 25 hours be recorded, as opposed to the previous 2 hours. The probe contained flaws, according to a former NTSB investigator. He criticized the board for not reflecting on its actions and suggesting that it is rather reactive than strategic. The NTSB only needs to be notified when a flight lands or takes off on a taxiway, or once a crash fails to occur following a runway incursion. And none of these events occurred. Despite this, the report criticizes Air Canada for disclosing the incident too late and wiping out the voice record. It also disregards a similar taxiway incident that occurred in December 2015 in Seattle-Tacoma on Alaska Airlines Flight 27, which was still under preliminary inquiry at the time. The NTSB issued the accident's identification number DCA16IA036. An ICAO endeavor to revamp the NOTAM system resulted from the advice to enhance it. NOTAMs have been characterized as a lot of junk that none gives any heed to by NTSB Chairman Robert Sumwalt. At the beginning of August, in the wake of the incident, the Federal Aviation Administration changed SFO's midnight landing operations. They prohibited visual landings at night when a neighboring parallel runway is off limits. Instead, they substituted them for satellite or ILS-based instrument approaches and mandated the presence of 2 airborne traffic controllers in the airport's control tower until the nighttime arrival rush has ended. Air Canada will utilize 4 distinct airline numbers on its Toronto to San Francisco circuit as of December 2023, replacing the previous flight number of 759. Flight numbers AC-741 and AC-743 are used for midday airfare, and flight number AC-745 is used for night flights, and flight number AC-737 is used for sunrise flights. Furthermore, Air Canada exclusively operates the Airbus A320 on its early day flights. The Boeing 737 MAX is used on the 2 midday flights, and the Airbus A320 is used on the night trip. The events that unfolded on that fateful night serve as a stark reminder of the critical decisions made in the cockpit and the impact they can have on the safety of passengers and crew. As we wrap up this episode, take a moment to reflect on the bravery of the flight crew, the quick thinking of the air traffic controllers, and the lessons learned from this disaster. Aviation safety is a continuous journey, and incidents like this propel us to improve protocols, training, and communication. If you found this video informative, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more riveting content. And remember, every flight has a story, some filled with triumph, others with tragedy, but all contributing to the evolution of air travel. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and fly safe.